Okay, good morning. I'm going to take a few minutes here and go over some of the information that we talked about at back to school night for those of you that were not able to be there. So this information is going to be for physics, for my physics class. And I want to start by saying that I am not in this little video going to go over everything in the syllabus. I need you to read through the syllabus. It is an assignment. I need you to sign the last page. I need you to have a parent sign the last page. And you will either submit that to me electronically, or you'll bring it to class with you next week. Okay, so that is one of your assignments. You have other assignments as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the main thing I want to talk about here is the reality of how I imagine class to go for those who are remote each week. Okay, and the thing that I want to say on the front end is my preference is that you are actually available and tuning in for the actual class session. Okay, so that when second period starts, you are live via Zoom in the physics class. Okay, and the reason for that is that I actually want you to hear the material, the lecture material live. Okay, if you have questions, I actually want you to be able to answer them. There is a relative amount of interaction that I'm looking for us to have during the class period. So on your remote weeks, my preference is that you are tuned in via Zoom. Now, obviously, that is going to be completely dependent on our Wi-Fi bandwidth at Northside. And I recognize we've had some issues with that in the past. They have been so kind as to actually purchase another router for us. So hopefully that will help. We've got a couple other things up our sleeves if we still need some extra bandwidth. So we'll just see how it all plays out. Okay, plays out. But that is my preference, is that you are live during the scheduled class time, at least for the lecture part. If it turns out that we're really having issues seeing the board and seeing worked out problems, we'll address those. But my preference is for you to be live during class time. So, look at my little notes here. I have some notes. For those of you that are live, I expect that you will, not live, remote. I expect that you will have your homework just like always in all of my classes, and you're gonna hold your homework up like this when we do homework check, and you're gonna show me that you've completed your homework. You'll flip through pages if you have more than one page, okay? So that way I can see it, see that it's completed, and mark it off. So that is how we will do that. And then if we have issues with the technology, you'll have to scan it and electronically load it to me, but that's not my preference. I know what the other thing I was gonna say is that if we have issues with the recordings working via Zoom, via something Wi-Fi, then I will, because my plan is to record the messages via Zoom. Therefore, if you have a week when you have technology issues at home, or whether you're sick, or whether you're traveling, your family's doing something and you're not available, then that lecture material will still be made available to you via a recording. Okay, so, and if we have technology issues, my plan is to record it via Zoom. If we have technology issues, I will just straight up record it on my laptop or my phone, and I will post it up on YouTube. So on the weeks that you are not in class, even for the weeks that you are in class, my hope is to have a lecture video recorded at some point on Tuesday, right? So that you can watch that. That's another reason why I actually want you live, is the reality is I teach 4 classes. I might be able to get stuff uploaded at lunch, but I'm not even gonna guarantee that's gonna happen. So the reality then is that for the weeks that you're not live, you're not in the class, I don't really want you to have to wait until 4 or 5 in the afternoon to see the lecture material. And that is likely to happen given the reality of needing for me to have all my classes done and get the material and get it uploaded on YouTube. So preference, be logged in at class time, okay? Okay, so that's a couple of things. You'll show me your class, that's how we're gonna get that. You do have homework due next Tuesday. So if you've not started that, you might wanna get on that. You should have joined the class by now, okay? You should have the class code from Miss Chris. You need to join the class. When you get to the class, there'll be a couple of folders that are already loaded on there in the materials section. One's the physics general info. That'll have the syllabus. It'll also have your lab schedule. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but the labs are already set for the year, okay? And then there's another folder that says module 1. And when you click on that, there'll be something, says something like physics homeworks to do 818 or something like that. Excuse me. So you can go to there, then you'll click on a page. Click on that page and it'll list all of your assignments for this coming Tuesday. And that is how I will structure the homework due each week. Okay, so you can go there, you can see all of the homework listed. It's all in one place. If you go to the individual assignments, all of those details will not be listed. So you're going to want to go to the page, says homework due, whatever date, and that's where you're going to find your homework. If you've had before for classes, it's just like it always has been. Okay, so that's the plan. That's the plan there. You are going to be reading through material, doing problems before I lecture on the material. If you've had me for chemistry, same drill as always. Okay, so for that reason, your homework grade is based completely on completion and not being correct. If you do 5 practice problems and they're all wrong, you will get 100%. Okay, so it's just about you working through the material. I know that I am going to clarify things when you get to class. If you have questions during the week when you're reading, by all means, please don't wait till Tuesday. Reach out to me. I'll do my best to clarify them as I can, okay? So I want you to be working through that material, because then I can clarify concepts for you before we move on to a new topic. If I introduce the topic, then when you get home, you're gonna have questions, but guess what? The next week, we're doing something different. So you're gonna wrestle with material, come to class, I'll clarify things for you. That's how we do it. It's fun. Okay. Labs, Thursdays, on the set lab schedule that I've already posted from 2 to 3 p.m. We usually do it at my house. This year we're not, because I feel like I need a bigger space than that. And so we will be meeting at a sweet friend of mine's barn, which is where we did the informal last year, if you were there, out on Petty Lane. So 2 to 3 Thursday afternoons. If you work part-time and you usually work Thursdays, you're going to need to get those Thursdays off, only for that hour, okay, or hour and a half for the time it takes you to get there and drive back. Okay, but I want you to be there because part of this coursework is the lab, okay? So I expect you to be at labs on Thursdays, okay? All right, the barn is big enough. If anyone feels like there needs to be some social distancing, that will not be a problem, okay? And we'll talk about more details of labs when we get closer. We have one actually not this Thursday, but next Thursday, I think, double check that. But anyways, that's the plan, Thursdays 2 to 3. Check the lab schedule. I work really hard to not shift lab dates. I have given you a schedule. I do my very best to honor the dates that I put on the calendar, okay? Yeah, on remote days, you're gonna show me your work. That's great if you have questions. I expect that you're working about an hour to an hour and a half each day that we're not meeting on physics, okay? So 4 to 6 hours per week on physics. Please don't wait until Monday to do all of your homework. It's not a good plan. Okay, we typically, just like in chemistry, are going to have tests due on Thursday nights. Not that they won't, that might not ever change, but I figure if we finish a module on a Tuesday, it gives you a day and a half to study, and then you'll have your test due to me Thursday night. The way that will work this year is that I will, just like always, I will take all of your tests. This year, in particular, I want you to attach your tests to the assignment. So I prefer you don't email them to me, but put them to the assignment in Schoology. Even though I'm probably going to be printing them all out and scanning them back to you, let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so what will happen is I will print out all your tests. I will grade all your tests. For those of you that would be remote the next week, I will then scan those tests and return them to you via Schoology probably. Okay, and that way you'll still have your test for us to go over in class on Tuesday mornings, okay? So you'll still get your test back even if you're remote. And with everybody being every other week, it should work out that, you know, it's about half the time that you're remote on those weeks and half the time you're live. One thing that's different in physics from chemistry is that in chemistry, remember how I would just say over and over, this all builds, it all builds, it all builds, right? Well, in physics, it's kind of a different beast. In physics, we're going to study something for a couple weeks, and we're going to move to a new topic. Now, there are a few modules that do build on each other, but then we'll have something build on each other for maybe a module or two, and then we'll churn and we'll do something completely different. So if you find yourself in a module that you're not delighted with, hang in there, and in a couple weeks, we'll be doing something else, okay? The math in physics is, I would say, a little bit more complex in that you're going to be doing a lot of variable isolation. So if that's not something you're super confident in, I'd love for you to reach out because I have all kinds of practice problems. You can just work on isolating variables. And obviously, as we go over problems in class, I'm happy to step through variable isolation steps. But I'm expecting that you are learning and becoming more and more proficient in isolating variables. And if you like math, you'll actually enjoy that. It's kind of fun once you get good at it. So that's what we'll do. You still like chemistry are going to need to show me all your work, especially in physics. And especially, here's one really important thing about physics. You can get answers that are completely off, but because you either made a mistake early on, or because you just made a mistake in one area, your process for the most part is actually close to correct. Okay, so because you know me, if you've had chemistry, I like to give partial credit, so you got to show me your work, but know that by doing that, I'm going to give you as many points as I possibly can. So again, for those of you who know me, you know how I work. Show me your work. It's really important. It's also really important because of the fact that you'll be scanning tests to me and I'll be scanning them back to you periodically. Your scans have got to be readable. If they are not dark enough, I will just say, I'm sorry, you're going to need to rescan this. Okay. So, and the biggest thing about that is it's honestly very cumbersome for me when I go to grade tests. I print them all out and I'm ready to grade. And I got 4 tests that I now have to chase down the person, have them rescan it. So please use a good scanning app, write dark enough with your pencil, and make sure your scans are readable. It's incredibly important, okay? Especially this year. Because I do want to be able to scan it, send it back to you. If you can't read it, it's not going to be very helpful, okay, to go over it. I'm excited to be back with you even halftime. I know it's going to be a little tricky. There's going to be things that are not ideal. I recognize that wholeheartedly. But I am wanting to embrace that. Embrace the good that's happening in the midst of all the wonkiness. And there's some pretty good wonkiness going on in our world right now. Okay. So I'm excited to be with you guys. I'm excited that we get to be at Northside. I'm so grateful that Northside is allowing us to meet. It's such a gift. There's a lot of tutorials that have not been able to meet at all. So I want you to recognize the gift we have in Northside. They're working with us as best they know how to get us back in the building. And for that, I am enormously grateful. I want you to be grateful too. I want feedback. If things are difficult for you in the remote weeks, or if you have ideas of how to make it better, by all means, please reach out to me. I want to hear that feedback. Given the uncertainty of the world we live in, I actually feel like in some ways, this walking in the tension of not having the control we would like to have is actually a gift, because it's teaching us how to walk in humility, how to embrace our weaknesses, how to be creative in problem solving, how to do a class that's partly online. All of those that are things that you're learning how to do and you're building competency in, and that's a good thing. So I'm grateful for even that. I think the biggest thing for me that I have recognized this year is that that we are studying through 2 Corinthians at the church where I worship. And so, hang on, I'm getting to it. What did that? Sorry, I got to pull back up. I want to read to you something out of 2 Corinthians 12. Because it has been made abundantly clear to me, like I have significant weaknesses this year that I've had more so than I've had in any other year. You always, as a teacher, feel a little bit like, wow, there's a lot here that I need to wrap my head around, or that it's not my strength, or that challenges the things that I do well, right? And this year, it's just so crystal clear to me that I have significant weaknesses. So here's what Paul says. He's talking about his thorn in the flesh, and he asked God to remove it, and God didn't remove it. And we don't know what that thorn in the flesh was, but we know it was some kind of difficulty, right? So here's what God said to Paul in 2 Corinthians 9. It says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And then Paul says, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so the power of Christ may rest upon me." So I'm saying to you, I recognize it is not within me to make this year all that it could be. But I trust that God is going to show up in his goodness as we rest in our weaknesses, and his power is going to rest on us, and we're going to have a good year together. I am confident of that. and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing half of you next Tuesday and the other half on the 25th. So blessings on your weekend. Make sure you get your work done and let me know if you have any questions. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Bye.